Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today's episode is the episode in which I almost said Sonic the Hedgehog, in which Rainbow Dash is trying to do a Sonic Rainboom for a competition, during which Rarity shows up and, to put it as nicely as possible, steals the sunlight. So that kind of is a wonderful thing. Also, obligatory suicide to make sure that this isn't flagged for kids. Sorry. And basically, yes, Ethel. It was very much an insult. Let's be clear. I tried to own it up during high school, and then high school was really cool, so I didn't have to do that. Go figure. The one and only time I had a decent time in school was in high school. Anyways, so yeah. This is the worst episode ever made in the history of anything ever. Yeah. There we go. Okay. And I have mysteriously gone evil. It's weird. I have become evil. No, it's, I do. If it wasn't for Rarity, I would actually really like this episode. But I want a slugger. Like, and I get why. And from a third-person perspective, really putting myself out and zooming out the camera a bit, I get what they were doing. They were exaggerating her to make the point. This is actually something pretty common for a lot of Season 1, where they exaggerate someone so far that it gets to the point where they're effectively acting out of character. I want to talk about this briefly, because this is actually a relevant point for any kind of long-term character stuff. One of the defenses I tend to hear for character assassination is, oh, well, you want them to act the same way all the time? To which I say, no, you're a moron. Because, let's think of this as a gradient, okay? This is where the character normally is. Now, circumstances can make them go anywhere around here, right? Because that's how we all are. You know, that's what is involved in being a three-dimensional character, is you can move all around in this. A two-dimensional character, that's a little bit different. We'll get to that later. So, you know, being able to vary or be better or worse than yourself is something that is not only acceptable, it frankly should happen. Rarity should have been vain about this episode. She should have been like, oh gosh, yes, I absolutely am going to involve myself in this competition, and she should have lost her head. But not as much. This is what character assassination means. Character assassination is when they act out of character too far. It is a matter of severity. If Picard suddenly walked up to someone and slapped him and called him a cuss word, that would be character assassination. If Picard has been pushed to the point where he is actually willing to slug someone out of just raw anger, that is characterization. Make sense? Like, it depends on the context and the specifics of it. And in my opinion, in this episode, rather than being in the acceptable range, they went too far out of acceptable range. And Rarity is just way too much, way too extreme. Now, again, I can explain this because it's easy to explain. Anytime you see this level of character exaggeration, it's because it's easier to do that. No insult intended. This is just a statement of fact. It is easier to write an exaggerated character than a nuanced one. That's just duh. I mean, let's say I was writing a fan fiction about the Lore Walkers right now. I could make a character called... Who should I pick on? Let's call this character Salvicom. Okay. Oh, nope, Shadow Machine said it first. Okay, hang on, give me a think about this for a second. Okay, I've got it. Now, I'm not going to do the nuanced thing, because Shadow Machine is a nuanced character. He's a person. But to exaggerate, it would be really, really easy to write Shadow Machine. Let's take his love of puppies. Okay, that's easy, right? That's his only character trait now. He's got puppy toys all across his room and pictures of his puppy all across the walls, and he loves dogs, and he's got his dog, and he's thinking about getting another dog. And, you know, every time he goes out, he goes with a walk with the dog, and it's all his life is about his dog. That's easy. Like, this is so easy, I don't have to put any effort into it, and that's my point. I don't have to put any effort whatsoever into exaggerating a character, right? that is an exaggeration, right, Shadow Machine? And that's why they do stuff like this, because it's easy. Because they, rather than it being, say, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about in specific context here. Because let's say Rarity is just like, oh yes, I'm wonderful and amazing and wonderful. Oh, and at one point, Twilight actually says, "You need to stop. We're here for Rainbow Dash." And Rarity's like, "No, why would I ever hide these wings?" It's actually surprisingly easy with a little bit of extra work to add a bit of nuance there. Rather than her going full, you could have had her do something more along the lines of, "Oh, you're right, of course, dear. I'm terribly sorry," and then have something else prompt her to push forward. So, like, imagine she put away her wings and stopped showing off, but then the other Pegasi, to go to Wee Outs, I was mentioning in chat earlier, were actually like, "Oh my God, your wings are so incredible." They start crowding around her, and she's like, "Oh yes, well, I guess, I guess they could be seen as rather beautiful. They are very pretty." Flash, 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 and then one of the back's like, "Oh my God, you should totally compete." No, I couldn't possibly. "No, yes, you should compete. And oh well, okay, yes, sure, yes. I suppose I could show off my wings to everyone. You don't mind, do you, Rainbow?" And Rainbow by this point is so that she doesn't say no, right? And you could see how that's different than her just being straight up, "Screw Rainbow Dash," which is how she's portrayed. Again, Flandersization. That's really the problem here. That being said, with that irritation out of the way, there's actually some really good stuff in this episode. So I actually have a fairly large list of notes here. So let's just start up at the top. Let me just say that Fluttershy is the most adorable thing ever. Yay. 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 Oh my God. Love that. Plus to story. And then it's what's funny is it actually happens throughout the whole episode. In fact, the one and only time she cheers loudly is when she manages the Rainboom. But so then the cut back from the credits, and she's sitting there. She's I wrote it down. Yay, woohoo! Or no, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's actually yay, woo, way to go. As she's going around and just doing her tricks. And then when Rainbow crashes with the thing, she says, "You rock, woohoo!" It's the most adorable thing. I love it. Anyways, we once again see that Rainbow Crash has the balloon confidence thing. I need to look up what that's called because she really does have that. For those of you who don't remember me mentioning it earlier, it's when you puff yourself up and self-promote yourself, self-aggrandize yourself, because you actually have self-confidence issues. And thus, any flaw will pop the bubble. Oh, I called her Rainbow Crash on purpose, because, well, first of all, because she does have a tendency to crash. That's not new to this episode. And second of all, she really does crash with the thing, and nobody cares about it. But I'll get it. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, she crashes in, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what happens?" "Oh, I was practicing, blah, blah, blah. You need to do a stand-up Rainbow." Yeah, and Pinky talks it up. Notice that when Pinky is talking about how awesome she is, Rainbow actually looks pretty shy about that. I wanted to point this out, because I've heard a lot of people say that Rainbow is just a self-stuck-up braggart, and that is incredibly inaccurate. Oh, she brags. But she brags as a literal defense mechanism. She is not actually stuck up. That's actually kind of the problem. When Pinky starts... So again, getting back to my point, Pinky talks her up, and she's like, yeah. I mean, it was a while ago, and, I was pretty young. And then there's this bit. Now, this is great. One of them says, I think it's Rarity, specifically says, "You're going to do it at the contest, right?" And there's like a second and a half of like 7 animations that play in rapid succession. And I wanted to zoom the camera in on that moment because it's excellent animation. She's like, and then she opens up with a face, and it's kind of a smile, but then the smile goes away, and then she goes into a full-on frown, and her mouth is still open. And then she kind of goes, and then she starts recovering. Yeah, are you kidding? Of course I'm going to do the Sonic Rainboom. Right? And then she immediately switches back to the bragging self-defense mechanism. And the whole time it's just like, oh my God. I could do this in my sleep. No, but you see, this is what I mean by nuance, by the way. Rainbow Dash is a nuanced character this episode. And I like that. I like nuanced characters. I like two-dimensional or three-dimensional characters. We actually get a lot of good stuff with Rainbow in this episode. It's the way reason I'm willing to forgive it for the most part, because they really go full out with her. And as she's leaving, she leaves, and Fluttershy turns and says, she's practiced that 100 times. She's never even come close. And it's like, oh, yeah. Then Twilight just goes back to fixing, and Rarity's like, well, go on. Go on what? Oh, come on, you've got to have a spell. What do you mean? Rarity is, of course, the one who notices how nervous Rainbow was. Which is in character for Rarity, I might add. And another reason why this episode kind of irritates me. Oh, I know. But my point is that Rarity was immediately and demonstrably thinking about Rainbow. You need to come up with a spell for us to get up there just so we can cheer her on. Just so we can be there for her. Do note the difference there. What Rarity did not say is, figure out a spell to make her do a sonic rainboom. She did not say, figure out a spell to speed up her wings. She did not say, figure out a spell to boost her, to boost her speed or whatever. No. Figure out a spell for us to get up there so we can be there for her. I like that. I wouldn't have either. I am very organized in my home. I would be rather upset about that, Savicon. But I mean, Rainbow Crash. Anyways. So, Rarity insists, multiple times actually, and then she's like, okay, we'll go ahead and get the flight spell. Rarity also is the one who volunteers. It's like, yes, no, I'm gonna do this. I'll be the one to put myself down for this. We got this. Okay. And Rarity also looks rather nervous as it's being cast on her, which is kind of nice to see. This is also not the first time we've seen this, but this is the first time it becomes a plot point where spells basically costing, to put it into simplistic terminology, more mana is actually a problem. Because Twilight pretty much flat out says she could not cast the wing spell again. So she had to do a lot, lower mana spell. I do like that idea, and it kind of goes in with the ideas of the show in general. It's also interesting because the show makes it clear that there's a distinction between a spell and using your magic in a day-to-day fashion. Spells are usually things that have a demonstrable impact, whereas, day-to-day fashion is just picking up the drink to drink from it, Like adding wings to a pony, that's a spell. Picking up a book to sort it in a thing, that's just day-to-day. Anywho. So, Rarity volunteers. We get our first real look at Cloudsdale. Okay, that's cool. Why do we have to see the bullies first? That actually irritates me a bit. Why is that the first thing we forget? They're even factory workers, for God's sakes. So then we hear, this is the first time, excuse me, this is actually the second time, but this is the first time the term Rainbow Crash is used as a derogatory in character. And they mention a line which actually caught my attention. Face it, Rainbow Crash. Flight school had too many rules and not enough nap times. Now that's an interesting line there. Like, I hate to point to that, but it's... First of all, that's something that's going to come up later in actually one of my favorite episodes of all time of this show. But second of all, I do think that was kind of true. I do think that is kind of the thing that Rainbow basically wasn't able to truly commit herself to it. This is a problem in real life. We'll see this with Fluttershy's brother in the future, not being able or not willing to commit, even though you have the talent. Like, that's a thing. Oh yeah, speaking of which, animation-wise, I hate to point out weird little animation things, but I noticed that they bounced back and forth between whether they had the wings up or the wings folded in on the side for every Pegasi, including Rainbow and Fluttershy, while they were going through Cloudsdale. Just interesting to comment on. I wonder if there's some kind of technical animation reason why they varied between the two. Sometimes they would go back and forth across scenes, and it technically creates continuity errors, but let's not get into that. I'm not that nitpicky. Anyway, so we finally see Cloudsdale, which of course has a very Greco-Roman look. Makes sense. We've already kind of established that as the look for Rainbow. Now, then Fluttershy asserts herself. Now, wait just a minute. Oh, I'm sorry, was that too much? Anyway, she can do it. Show up if you're free. I like that, first of all. Especially since she was all happy about how assertive she was. It also is the first step of, like, 50. God, my nose really itches. Forgive me. Ugh. It's the first step of, like, 50. It's, like, right on the edge, like, right here. I hate that. When she starts to become a little bit more assertive and a little bit more sure of herself, and it's awesome. I just wanted to comment on that really quick here. So, then she loses her head for a second, because what she says is, and I decided to write this down word for word, just because you failed 100,000 times in practice doesn't mean you won't be able to do it in front of an entire stadium full of impatient, supercritical sports fan ponies. Thanks, Fluttershy. I like to think that she was being sincere there. Like, she didn't really get it, which is funny because Fluttershy does have stage fright, and that'll come up later. Singing, right? But I do want to mention something. Rainbow, of course, freaks out. Of course she does. Any of us would freak out at that. I want you to think of something you like to do. Now I want you to imagine doing it in front of a giant stadium filled to the brim with people. Speaking as someone who had to literally take lessons on overcoming stage fright, I have frickin' been there. I'm going to comment on this again in a second. Like, I'm not joking. I took lessons. This is like 5th grade at this point, but I did literally take lessons to overcome stage fright because, yikes. And it took years too, if I'm being honest. But anywho, so notice how Rainbow's escalation process, which is interesting. First, she says, every pony will see me fail, which obviously really would mess with her. Second, she'll never get to join the Wonderbolts, so that's her dream gone. And third, she'll be banished to the Everfree Forest. Now, it's pretty worth noting that that is an escalation both in terms of ridiculousness and in terms of severity. But it does kind of get across the idea of how much this is bothering Rainbow. She really is completely freaked out about this. And if there was any doubt of that, this confirms it 100%. So then, Butterfly Rarity shows up. I bet that was a toy. I have to admit, it makes sense that she has butterfly wings, ignoring the obvious, previous generation reference. They're temporary, the cocoon thing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and the balloon shows up again, that balloon I mentioned earlier. This is also the first time they really codify the lore that Pegasus ponies can walk on clouds as part of their nature, and other ponies can't. As an aside, I do like the idea of a cloud walking spell. I'm with Dream Whisperer. You'd think that kind of thing would be a little bit more common, but whatever. So, Rainbow admits... What, Shadowlink? Rainbow admits that, she's nervous. You want a tour? First time you've been up here, and it's the first time the audience and the characters, some of the characters, have actually seen Cloudsdale. So we actually get to see a nice little, perspective on the town and a little bit more world building. And you guys know I love good world building. So, Rarity, of course, admires her wings. And I've already said my piece on Rarity. So let's just kind of move on. Then the construction workers admire her, like construction workers do. I also like how clouds are literally used as construction material, which makes sense, given the circumstances. Although my first thought was Hercules, the Disney film. Anyone see that? No? Okay, don't worry about it. So we see the weather factory, first of all. Safety hats, very important thing to visually show there. They also mention that each snowflake is hoof-made. Right. Sure they are. I mean, granted, they only need snow once a year. But still, imagine spending a whole year building snowflakes. That's... oh. Yeah. However, ironically, despite that ridiculousness, they then followed up with something that's actually a tiny little bit of background world building. Rainbow says, let's get out of here before Rarity ruins winter and causes a drought. I only point that out because we've actually brought it before, why do they do winter if they control the weather? Well, there's a little bit of that. I theorized that it was kind of, trying to maintain a balance of the ecosystem kind of a thing. And Rainbow's aside comment kind of leans that direction. Without winter, they might actually have a drought as a direct consequence of lacking the humidity and moisture added to the environment of the air. So there you go. Just world building. I love world building. So then we find out that rainbows are crafted and apparently very spicy. I have to admit, as weird as this may sound, that was my thought too. Like, I wouldn't think rainbows would be sweet. I would think they would be like burning hot, you know, like alcohol hot, personally, just looking at them. Anyway, so rainbows are crafted. This is where I mentioned the wings thing. Rainbow, what am I going to do with these boring old feather wings? This is then immediately followed by Rarity flanderdizing. Why are rainbows spicy? Well, rainbows are refracted light, so imagine tasting a bunch of lasers. Just light beams. Yeah, it would be terrible, Shikor. And then we'd have to have the one soul monk who's left go do it. So, yeah, anyways. Then Rarity agrees to compete. I will give them the fact that the Pegasus ponies are the ones who push Rarity to actually compete. So, you know, whatever. We then get to the actual competition. Once again, we see that Rainbow is more of a short-term thinker than a long-term. Rather than actually trying to figure out a way to deal with this, she's just freaking out and just swaps out the numbers, which just delays the inevitable. It's not going to work, Rainbow. I hate to point this out to you. Things go forward. You know, everyone else competes. There's a little bit of time passes. 2 comments before we actually get to the main competition point. One, am I the only person who thinks that Rarity fully gussied up looks terrible? I bet that was a toy, too. I'm actually going to pause here because I'm curious if anybody's thoughts on this one. Like, I remember looking at her just being like, whoa, whoa, too much. Yeah, what's funny is she has fashion sense. Even established before this point in time, she has fashion sense. Yeah, she literally looked like a clown. Hoity-toity would be like, oh, you've used too much of everything. I mean, gaudy is a word for a reason, right? Anyways, the other note, and this gets across everything I've been saying about Rainbow beautifully. Rainbow is literally huddled in a corner, shaking. And God, have I been there. Any of you? You don't have to tell me. You can just nod your head or whatever. Oh God, I've been there. Right before going on stage. Whole auditorium is filled, and I'm just like... And everyone has their own methods of dealing with it, right? Ooh. Yeah. So then Swan Link starts playing. And Rainbow starts choking immediately. Yeah, I've been there too. I have choked on stage before. Not literally cough, cough. I mean, like, screwed up my routine. Yeah. So, Rarity pulls an Icarus. Flies a little bit too high. Ha ha ha. What's funny is they actually mentioned that earlier. Twilight flat out told her, careful, your wings are delicate. Can I just say I'm a little disappointed that the Wonderbolts are the only ones who do anything to try and literally save her life. And all of the other flying ponies, including Celestia, by the way, just kind of hang out like, oh no. It's probably, I hate to say this, but that and the Rarity thing are the only things I would consider badly written about this episode. Now, I get it. Rainbow had to be the one to get her. You could still do this. No, seriously. Have it be that, like, you know, the Wonderbolts go down. They're fast enough to catch Rarity. Rarity flails, knocks them out. Multiple other ponies just automatically jump down, you know, trying to go and catch her. They're just not fast enough. They can't reach terminal velocity. Then Rainbow has to do this, and Rainbow does the Rainboom in order to catch her. Problem solved. Little things, you know, nuance. It's not like you can't do it, MLP. You have a lot of nuance. Anyways. Never mind. It's not like Rarity was way out there. Anyways. Whatever. Moving on. So, Rainbow does it. Now, this is something that's been established basically since episode 1. That underneath everything else, Rainbow is there for others. Because you'll notice, Rainbow could not do it. She could not perform, if you want to put it into such terminology. No sex innuendo intended. She could not perform when she was doing it for self, when she was doing it, in front of Fluttershy, when she was doing it in front of a stadium. She could not manage it. However, when the stakes got real, first try, no problems. And you'll notice, and again, good nuance here, you'll notice that she actually doesn't even realize that she's doing it until she has already past tense done it. That's great. I love that. It was just so automatic for her, because in the moment she wasn't thinking about how much she's going to suck. She wasn't thinking, oh God, what if I fail? She wasn't thinking, what'll people think of me? She was thinking, I've got to catch Rarity. And that was all that she was really thinking in the moment. And she did it. So, that's awesome. Yeah, you also literally see the struggle. It's really good. I love it. I love it. It's a good moment. And actually, after she does it, the camera literally zooms back in on her face after she's done the Rainboom, and she's just like, whoa! Like, she's just now noticing that she did that. I like that. And so then she shows off a little bit. Rarity's like, oh, you saved my life. This, of course, leads to the denouement of the episode, where Rarity's in the balloon. By the way, very minor good bit. Rarity's in the balloon because she doesn't have the Cloud Walk spell cast on her. So she's just hanging out in the balloon. And Rainbow is, of course, a complete geek. Oh my gosh, 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 oh my gosh. I can't even do it like she does. That's got to take several takes to get that, because there's a specific tempo you got to maintain there. Also, am I the only one who was weirded out by hearing this voice actress for Spitfire? Considering how she'll sound in the future. Just weird. Anyway. Then the bullies are like, oh, you're cool, I guess. I guess. I mean, you did something cool, so we'll stop being bullies. Because, that's how bullies work, right? I know, kids show, but damn it, that's not how bullies work. Bullies are evil, and must be destroyed like the bugs they are! What? I'm a shove back kind of guy. What do you want from me? I am. I won't shove you. I'll shove back. And yeah, they have a sitcom ending. This, again, does this qualify as a wah wah? Sorry, guys, I've got plans. I don't think this one qualifies. I haven't jotted it down. Which is good, because we already have way too many wah-wahs, and we're just in Season 1. So. Honestly, if Rarity was toned down a bit, this would probably be my favorite episode of Season 1 so far. Like, don't mistake me, there's been some good episodes in Season 1. I'm particularly fond of Winter Wrap-Up, for example. And Fall Weather Friends. But, this would be amazing if not for that. God, at this point, we're already up to 3, I think, we odds. Something like that. Yeah, no kidding, Lord Harriman. Now, next, so hang on. So let's go ahead. Chop off the local recording.